Noah Lancaster's champagne flute froze midway to his lips as he spotted Aubrey Chen, walking through the glass doors of the Zenith Tower's rooftop terrace, her white silk suit catching the Miami moonlight like liquid silver. 6 years of carefully constructed confidence crumbled in that single moment, because the woman he'd dismissed as not ambitious enough was now being escorted by the evening's billionaire host himself. "Baby, you're crushing my hand," Lexi whispered beside him, her Instagram perfect pout barely concealing her annoyance. Noah realized he'd been gripping her manicured fingers with white-knuckled intensity, his usual swagger replaced by something uncomfortably close to panic. The rooftop party buzzed around them, Miami's elite mingling beneath string lights that cost more than most people's cars, discussing crypto investments and their latest Hamptons acquisitions. This was Noah's element, his carefully curated world of influence and image. He'd built his real estate empire from nothing, transforming himself from a struggling contractor into Miami's most photographed bachelor. His Instagram account boasted 3 million followers, who lived vicariously through his yacht parties, designer suits, and an endless parade of 20-something models. Tonight was supposed to be another victory lap, the launch party for Meridian Tech's new headquarters in the Zenith Tower, a building that would reshape Miami's skyline. Was exactly the kind of exclusive event that fed his brand. He'd arrived fashionably late in his white Lamborghini, Lexi draped on his arm like the perfect accessory. She was everything his image required, young, beautiful, and desperately grateful for his attention. But Aubrey's presence changed everything. She moved through the crowd with a quiet confidence that Noah remembered too well. Her dark hair swept into an elegant chignon that revealed the graceful line of her neck. She wasn't trying to be noticed, wasn't posing for the cameras that followed. Her every step, she simply existed in her own power. And somehow that commanded more attention than all of Noah's calculated charm. "Who is she?" Lexi demanded, following his gaze with the predatory instinct of a woman who sensed competition. "She's getting more photos than me, and I literally just posted about this party to my 1,000,000 followers." Noah couldn't answer. His throat felt thick with memories he'd spent years burying, late nights when Aubrey had believed in him, when she'd shared her modest apartment and cooked dinner while he drafted his first business plans. On her kitchen table, back then, she'd been pursuing her master's in architecture while working 2 jobs to support them both. She'd been brilliant, driven, everything he claimed to want in a woman, until she wasn't enough. Until his success demanded a different kind of woman, one who looked good in photographs and didn't ask uncomfortable questions about his business practices or challenge his increasingly inflated ego. The crowd began shifting toward the center of the terrace, where a small stage had been erected. Marcus Thornfield, the tech mogul hosting the event, stepped up to the microphone with the easy confidence of a man worth 9 figures. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus began, his voice carrying across the rooftop with practiced authority, "tonight, we celebrate not just a building, but a vision. The Zenith Tower represents the future of sustainable luxury, and it exists because of one person's extraordinary talent." Noah's stomach dropped as Marcus gestured toward Aubrey, who stood gracefully near the front of the crowd. "I present to you the lead architect behind this magnificent structure, the woman who convinced me that beauty and environmental responsibility could coexist in perfect harmony, Ms. Aubrey Chen." The applause erupted around them as Aubrey moved toward the stage with fluid grace. Noah watched, frozen, as the woman he'd left behind 6 years ago stepped into a spotlight he'd never imagined she could claim. Aubrey's heels clicked against the temporary stage flooring as she approached the microphone, and Noah found himself holding his breath. She looked exactly the same, yet completely transformed, still petite at 5'4", still moving with that deliberate grace he remembered, but now there was something else, an authority that radiated from her posture, a confidence that needed no validation. "Thank you, Marcus," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the rooftop without a trace of nervousness. 6 years ago, I had a dream of buildings that could breathe with the environment rather than fight against it. Tonight, that dream reaches 70 stories into the Miami sky." The crowd hung on her every word as she gestured toward the gleaming tower rising behind them. Noah recognized the passion in her voice, the same intensity she'd brought to their relationship When she'd describe her architectural visions over wine and takeout in her tiny studio apartment. The Zenith Tower isn't just sustainable, Aubrey continued, it's regenerative. The living walls purify the air. The solar collection system powers 3 city blocks, and the rainwater reclamation feeds the vertical gardens that cool the building naturally. But more than that, it proves that luxury doesn't have to come at the Earth's expense. Lexi shifted impatiently beside Noah, clearly bored by talk that didn't revolve around social media metrics or designer brands. Can we get closer to the bar? I need better lighting for my stories. But Noah couldn't move. He was transported back to those late nights when Aubrey would sketch building designs on napkins, her eyes bright with possibilities he'd been too focused on his own ambitions to truly see. She'd always talked about changing how people lived, about creating spaces that enhanced both human life and environmental health. He'd nodded along, supportive but skeptical, never really believing she had the connections or ruthlessness necessary to make it happen. The inspiration for this project, Aubrey said, her gaze sweeping across the crowd, came from a conversation with someone who told me I'd never make it in architecture because I cared too much about ideals and not enough about profit. Noah's blood turned to ice. Several people in the crowd murmured appreciatively, assuming she was referencing some long-ago professor or critic. But Noah knew better. He remembered that fight, their last fight, when he'd accused her of being naive, of living in a fantasy world where buildings could save the planet, and love was enough to build a life on. That person, Aubrey continued with a slight smile, taught me that sometimes the best motivation comes from someone else's lack of faith in your vision. The applause was thunderous as she concluded her speech and stepped down from the stage. Marcus immediately swept her toward a group of international investors, all eager to discuss future projects. Noah watched her navigate the crowd with the ease of someone who belonged there not because of who she was with, but because of what she'd accomplished. Noah Lancaster. He turned to find a journalist with a recorder extended toward him. I'm Jennifer Walsh from Architectural Digest. I understand you're one of Miami's most successful real estate developers. What's your take on Ms. Chen's revolutionary approach to sustainable luxury? The question hit him like a physical blow. Here was a reporter who clearly knew his reputation, asking for his professional opinion on his ex-girlfriend's triumph. The irony was suffocating. It's impressive, he managed, his usual media charm deserting him completely. Have you worked with Ms. Chen before? I'd love to get your perspective on her design philosophy. Before Noah could formulate an answer that wouldn't reveal their history, Lexi inserted herself into the conversation with practiced ease. Actually, we're more focused on luxury residential properties, she said with a bright smile. Noah's developments are featured in Luxury Living magazine almost monthly. We should talk about his latest project in South Beach. The journalist politely extracted herself from Lexi's promotional pitch, clearly more interested in the evening's actual star than Noah's Instagram-worthy lifestyle. As she walked away, Noah felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Complete irrelevance. Across the terrace, Aubrey was surrounded by admirers, her laugh carrying on the ocean breeze. She looked genuinely happy, not the desperate, attention-seeking happiness he was used to seeing at these events, but the deep satisfaction of someone whose work spoke louder than her wealth. Noah excused himself to the men's room, needing space to process the earthquake that had just shattered his carefully constructed evening. The bathroom was mercifully empty, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Miami's glittering coastline. He gripped the marble countertop and stared at his reflection, still handsome at 40, still wearing the perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit that had cost more than Aubrey's monthly rent. Back in their struggling days together, but for the first time in years, his reflection felt like a costume rather than an identity. The door opened behind him, and Noah's heart nearly stopped as Aubrey walked in, clearly having mistaken it for the women's restroom in the building's identical layout. They stood frozen for a moment, 6 years of unspoken history hanging between them like smoke. Wrong door, she said simply, turning to leave with characteristic grace. Aubrey, wait. The words escaped before he could stop them. She paused, her hand on the door handle, but didn't turn around. Hello, Noah. Her voice was calm, professional. as if he were just another acquaintance from the party. It stung more than anger would have. Congratulations. The building. It's incredible. You did it. Now she did turn. Her dark eyes meeting his in the mirror's reflection did what? Changed the world. Like you always said you would. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. I changed my corner of it. That's all any of us can do. The simplicity of her response hit him harder than any accusation could have. This was the woman he'd left because she wasn't ambitious enough, because her dreams weren't big enough, flashy enough, profitable enough to match his rising brand. You look good, he said lamely, immediately regretting the cliché. I feel good, she replied, and he could see that she meant it. There was no bitterness in her voice, no hidden pain. She had moved on completely, while he was still trying to prove himself to ghosts. Listen, about how things ended between us, Noah. She cut him off gently but firmly. That was a different lifetime. We were different people with different priorities. You wanted to build an empire. I wanted to build a future. Neither of those goals was wrong, but they both knew that wasn't the whole truth. Noah hadn't just wanted different things, he'd been ashamed of what he saw as Aubrey's small dreams. Her focus on environmental impact over financial gain. Her willingness to live modestly while pursuing meaning over money. I was wrong about you, he said quietly, about what you could accomplish. Aubrey studied him for a moment, and he saw something in her expression that was worse than anger or hurt pity. You weren't wrong about me, Noah. You just never really saw me. The door opened again, and Lexi burst in with the dramatic flair of someone accustomed to making entrances. There you are. I've been looking everywhere. The photographer from Vogue wants to get some shots of us by though. She stopped short, taking in the intimate tableau of Noah and Aubrey facing each other in the elegant bathroom. Sorry, didn't realize you were having a private moment, Lexi said, her tone sharp with suspicion and territorial instinct. We weren't, Aubrey said smoothly. Just a case of mistaken doors. Enjoy your evening. She moved toward the exit with fluid grace, but Lexi's voice stopped her. Wait, you're the architect lady, right? The one everyone's been talking about? Aubrey turned back politely. I am. Lexi's expression shifted from suspicion to calculated interest. I'm Lexi Rodriguez. I have over 1 million followers on Instagram. Maybe we could collaborate on something. Sustainable lifestyle content is really trending right now. Noah watched Aubrey's face carefully, waiting for some sign of judgment or dismissal. Instead, she smiled with genuine warmth. That's wonderful that you want to use your platform for environmental awareness. You should talk to my assistant about our education initiatives. We're always looking for ways to reach younger audiences about sustainable living, the grace of the response reading. Lexi's superficial interest with genuine respect made Noah feel smaller than ever. This was the woman he'd left because he thought she lacked the sophistication for his new world. And here she was showing more class than he'd managed all evening. As Aubrey left, Lexi turned to Noah with narrowed eyes. Okay, what's the history there? And don't tell me there isn't one, because the tension in here was thick enough to cut with a knife. Noah found himself back on the terrace, but the party had transformed around him. Where before he'd seen his natural habitat, the wealthy, the beautiful, the influential, now he saw it through Aubrey's eyes. The conversations were hollow, focused on acquisition rather than creation. The laughter was performative, designed for social media rather than genuine joy. Even the stunning Miami skyline seemed somehow diminished, its beauty commodified rather than celebrated. Lexi had cornered Aubrey's assistant near the bar, pitching collaboration ideas with the relentless enthusiasm of someone who saw sustainability as the next trending hashtag rather than a fundamental shift in how humans interact with their environment. Noah watched his current girlfriend with growing discomfort, seeing for the first time how desperate she seemed, how focused on external validation rather than internal purpose. Quite an evening, said a voice beside him. Noah turned to see Marcus Thornfield, the billionaire host, holding two glasses of what was probably extremely expensive scotch. It is, Noah agreed, accepting the drink gratefully. You know Aubrey Chen? Marcus asked casually, but Noah caught the underlying assessment in his tone. We knew each other years ago. Brilliant woman. When she first pitched the Zenith Tower concept to me, I thought she was dreaming too big. A building that actually improves the environment around it seemed impossible. But she had the vision and the technical knowledge to make it work. Noah took a long sip of scotch, letting the burn distract from the growing ache in his chest. She's cost me about 50 million more than a traditional building would have, Marcus continued. But she's also created something that will generate headlines and attract tenants for decades. More importantly, she's proven that luxury and responsibility aren't mutually exclusive. That's rare in our world. How so? Marcus gestured toward the crowd around them. Most of us got wealthy by taking resources, taking opportunities, taking credit. Aubrey got here by giving. Her building gives back to the environment. Her firm gives opportunities to young architects from underrepresented communities. And tonight she gave every person here a vision of what's possible when intelligence meets purpose. The observation stung because it was accurate. Noah had built his empire through aggressive tactics, leveraging other people's desperation, cutting corners where regulations allowed. He'd told himself that was just good business, that success required ruthlessness. But watching Aubrey tonight, he realized there might have been another way. I'm actually hoping to convince her to design our new headquarters in Singapore, Marcus continued. She's resistant to taking on too many projects at once. Says she wants to focus on quality over quantity, on mentoring her team rather than expanding for expansion's sake. Noah knew that philosophy. It was the same approach Aubrey had taken to their relationship: depth over breadth, meaning over appearances. He'd found it limiting then. Now it seemed like wisdom. Across the terrace, Aubrey was engaged in animated conversation with a group of young professionals, clearly other architects and environmental designers. Her face was bright with enthusiasm as she gestured toward different aspects of the building's design, sharing knowledge rather than hoarding it. Noah remembered that generosity of spirit, how she'd always been eager to lift others up rather than compete with them. She turned down 3 major projects last month, Marcus said, following Noah's gaze, including one from the Dubai royal family. Said she'd rather work on one building that changes how people think about sustainable design than 10 buildings that just follow the same profitable patterns. The contrast with Noah's own approach couldn't have been starker. He'd built his success by saying yes to everything, by accumulating properties and projects and profits, without much thought to their long-term impact. Quantity over quality, appearance over substance. Lexi appeared at his elbow, slightly breathless from her networking efforts. Baby, I got the most amazing content tonight. That architect lady's assistant connected me with their social media team. Apparently, they have this whole campaign about lifestyle changes that can help the environment. It's perfect for my brand. Pivot. Noah watched his girlfriend's excited face and felt a profound sense of disconnection. Everything was content to her, every relationship a potential collaboration. Every experience filtered through the question of how it would play to her followers. Did you know, Lexi continued, scrolling through her phone, that buildings account for like 40% of carbon emissions? I had no idea. This could be a whole series, Sustainable Living with Lexi or something, the architect lady said. I could tour some of their other projects if I want to create educational content. The irony was suffocating. Lexi was more engaged with Aubrey's work after one conversation than Noah had been. During their entire 6-year relationship, he'd dismissed Aubrey's environmental concerns as naive idealism, but his current girlfriend saw their marketing potential. Immediately, Noah. Lexi touched his arm with concern. You've been weird all night. Are you okay? He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who wasn't fundamentally different from who he'd become. Someone focused on image over substance, on profit over purpose, on being seen rather than being real. I need some air, he said, though they were already outside. More air. We're on a rooftop. Noah walked to the edge of the terrace, looking down at the city he'd helped shape through his developments. Glass towers and luxury condos stretched toward the horizon, monuments to wealth and status that would outlast their builders, but contribute nothing lasting to the world. Behind him, he could hear Aubrey's voice as she prepared to leave, thanking Marcus for the opportunity and declining invitations to after-parties. With the same gracious professionalism she'd shown all evening, she was leaving early, not because she was uncomfortable or overwhelmed, but because she'd accomplished what she came to do. She'd shared her vision, celebrated her achievement, and now she was returning to whatever life she'd built without him, a life that was clearly full and meaningful and complete. Noah watched from across the terrace as Aubrey made her final rounds, saying goodbye with the same quiet elegance that had marked her entire evening. She moved through the crowd like someone who belonged everywhere and needed to prove it nowhere. Her white suit a beacon of certainty in a sea of desperate performance. Marcus walked her toward the elevator, their conversation animated and clearly focused on future projects. Noah caught fragments as they passed something about a green residential complex in Portland, a sustainable school campus in Costa Rica. Her life had expanded far beyond the Miami architecture scene he'd assumed would limit her, just as her vision had grown beyond the small dreams he'd once criticized. "Are you going to just stand there staring, or are you going to go talk to her?" Lexi asked, appearing beside him with the sharp intuition of a woman who understood male psychology better than most men understood themselves. "What would I say? I don't know. Maybe start with the truth." Noah looked at his girlfriend with surprise. For all her focus on image and influence, Lexi possessed an emotional intelligence he'd underestimated. "The truth about what? About whatever happened between you two that's making you look like someone just told you." Your portfolio crashed. Before Noah could respond, Aubrey's path took her directly past them on her way to the elevator. She paused, offering them both a genuine smile. "It was lovely meeting you, Lexi. I hope we can work together on that sustainability content you mentioned." "Definitely. I'll have my assistant call your assistant," Lexi replied with enthusiasm that seemed more authentic than her usual networking charm. Aubrey turned to Noah, extending her hand with professional courtesy. "Take care of yourself, Noah." The handshake lasted exactly as long as politeness required no lingering contact, no hidden messages. Just a successful woman bidding farewell to someone from her past who no longer had any claim on her present. "Aubrey," he said as she began to turn away, "I'm proud of you. What you've accomplished. It's extraordinary." She studied his face for a moment, perhaps reading the genuine admiration mixed with regret in his expression. "Thank you. That means something, coming from you." There was no sarcasm in her voice, no hidden barb. She meant it, which somehow made it worse. Even now, after everything, she could find grace for the man who'd told her she'd never make it, who'd chosen Instagram glamour over intelligent conversation, who'd traded love for likes. As the elevator doors closed behind her, Noah felt the weight of 6 years of wrong choices settling on his shoulders. He'd built an empire of appearance while she'd built monuments to purpose. He'd accumulated followers while she'd cultivated genuine relationships. He'd chosen wealth over worth, and tonight the difference was impossible to ignore. "So," Lexi said carefully, "want to tell me about it?" Noah looked at his girlfriend, young, beautiful, ambitious in her own way, but ultimately chasing the same hollow validation that had consumed him for years. She deserved better than being someone's rebound from a relationship that ended 6 years ago. More importantly, she deserved to be with someone who saw her as more than an accessory to his brand. "We dated for 6 years, he said simply. "I thought she wasn't ambitious enough. Turns out I was wrong about a lot of things." Lexi absorbed this information with the calculating intelligence that had built her social media empire. "And now, she's built something that will outlast both of us. And I'm standing on a rooftop realizing that everything I thought mattered doesn't." The party continued around them, but Noah felt fundamentally disconnected from it. The laughter seemed forced, the conversations shallow. The entire event suddenly revealed as an elaborate performance with no lasting meaning. "You know what the crazy thing is," Lexi said quietly. "I came tonight thinking I was the prize, young, hot, successful in my own right. But watching her up there, seeing how everyone responded to her, I realized I want to be the kind of woman people remember for what she built, not just how she looked building it." Noah stared at his girlfriend, seeing depth he'd never bothered to look for. Maybe that was his pattern, seeing people as reflections of himself rather than as complete individuals with their own dreams and complexities. The party began winding down around midnight, Miami's elite departing in their luxury vehicles toward their luxury homes, tomorrow already planned around the next event. the next opportunity to be seen and envied. Noah and Lexi rode down in the elevator in contemplative silence, both processing an evening that had revealed more than either expected. As they walked toward Noah's Lamborghini, Lexi stopped suddenly. "I think I'm going to call an Uber," she said. "Why?" "Because I think you need to figure some things out. And I need to decide if I want to keep being the kind of person I was tonight, or if I want to become the kind of person I could be." Noah watched her walk away, her heels clicking against the pavement with the same confidence Aubrey had shown all evening. Maybe that was the real lesson of tonight, that strength came from knowing who you were, not from being seen by others. He drove home alone through Miami's neon-lit streets, past the buildings he'd developed and the billboards advertising his latest projects. For the first time in years, none of it felt like success. It felt like elaborate set decoration for a life he'd never actually examined. At his penthouse, Noah stood on his balcony looking out at the city skyline, now dominated by the Zenith Tower's environmentally conscious architecture. Aubrey's building rose 70 stories into the Miami sky, its living walls already beginning to purify the air around it, its innovative design proving that ambition and responsibility could coexist. Tomorrow, he would wake up to the same Instagram perfect life he'd spent years constructing. But tonight, for the first time in 6 years, Noah Lancaster wondered what he might have built instead if he'd chosen substance over appearance, depth over display, love over likes. What do you think? When someone achieves success by dismissing another person's dreams, only to discover that person has surpassed them in every meaningful way? Is redemption possible, or do some choices close doors permanently? Does Noah deserve a second chance to rebuild his life around substance rather than image? Or has he forfeited that opportunity through years of prioritizing profit over purpose?